I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Q-Tip and the Short Guy. I'm Dee.
And I'm the Kidd Dre.
And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about parenting. Just to start off, I want to ask you, what do you think makes a good parent?
Well, the motto that I live by with my child is basically a good parent is a parent that makes sure that their kid is happy, healthy, prepared for life. Those are the main three things that every time my son and I go back and forth, I tell him all the time, my job is not to give you what you want. It's not, anything, but making sure that you are happy, healthy, and prepared for life. So that I think if you, as a parent, are doing those three things consistently, that makes a good parent.
I definitely agree with that. Do you ever find that there are times where you can't fulfill those needs?
There will be definitely moments where it's like happy and healthy contradict each other. Like for instance, when my son has like 8 a.m. basketball practice and he thinks he's going to stay up until 12 a.m. watching videos on YouTube, I definitely have that back and forth because it's like, okay, right now I'm not making you happy, but I'm making sure your health is okay. So you need enough sleep. Yeah, you're not going to be happy about it. And so those things are difficult to kind of do at the same time. But ultimately, if you think about like that specific instance where, it's like sleep is more important than, staying up all night to make sure he's happy. But the next day he will be happy because he'll be well rested. So, I mean, I think the happiness is like more of a, depending on who you're asking what happiness is. Like, hey, you're not going to be happy right now that you got to go to bed, but tomorrow you will be happy that you did because you won't be tired when you have practice and stuff like that. So yeah, there are definitely times where contradicting.
So I don't know if you heard the phrase, you are your parents, or you parent the same way that your parents parent. Do you find that the way that you parent your son?
I don't paint my parents in a bad light. So if it comes off that way, mom, dad, I apologize. But I definitely took things from my childhood that I would see my parents do. And instead of emulating that same behavior, I looked at it as, no, I don't want to be like that. Or no, I don't want to be that way with my child. So, I mean, sometimes it's uncontrollable. Like you'll do one of those things where you're just like, oh shit, my mom just came out of my mouth. I do that constantly, like doing dishes and shit. I'll be like, wish somebody else would help me, or every now and then. And it's like, my mom does that. Instead of just saying, hey, you want to help me with the dishes? Or, hey, can you put this away? I like very loudly will complain that my son's not helping me with the dishes. And I think it's one of those things that it's like you nurture over nature. Mm-hmm. So I was raised in a house with both of my parents. So for me to not have some type of qualities that my parents have is completely impossible. There's no way around it. Eventually, something that I do is going to be, oh shit, that's my mom and dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You brought up two things that I want to hit. The first one being... Shit, I don't remember. Sorry. But the second one... How was it growing up in a two-parent household? Because I only but I lived with my mom for my whole life.
Well, my parents were married until I was 18. They got a divorce, and that was 10 years ago. But growing up with both of my parents in the house was definitely, I feel like looking from the outside in, with my friends that have separate parents or one parent, I was honored. Like I definitely lived a very good life because of it. I think it helped me more with like stability didn't worry about like where I was going to spend the weekend, or if my father was going to show up to pick me up. And I have a lot of friends that I did hear that from. So growing up with them both in the house was definitely something that molded my idea of, you know, a good house, a good home, which is different because like I had no complaints. Like I wasn't like, I don't know who my dad is. My dad never picks me up. My mom is always mad because ain't no man around the house. Like I didn't have that, so like my idea of a broken home is all negative. So I feel like I had a really good life. And at the same time, it was like they didn't fight about my, well, at least not in front of me. They didn't fight about my discipline and my upbringing. Like whatever they everything they agreed on. So if my mom was like, hey, I don't think that we should do this A, B, and C with him, my dad would be like, okay, we won't do A, B, C with, you know what I mean? But it was definitely a good thing to grow up with both of my parents. But before you ask anything else, I have a question for you, because I don't know. What was it like to have a separated situation?
Growing up with one parent in the house was extremely difficult because I felt like I was alone a lot of the time. The only time that I was able to really spend a good amount of time with my father was on the weekends, and he came over, but it was only for a short period of time, like an hour or two during the week. And when it came to discipline and things like that, my mom was the disciplinarian, and in those situations, I really wish that I did have a two-parent household. I lived in a two-parent household because I had someone, I had someone on my side. Mm-hmm. When my dad stopped visiting us, when my younger brother was born, that really took a big effect on me because then I had to be the man of the house. And I don't know if I was really ready for it. I don't know if there's ever really a time that you're ready for it, but like, I'm saying I don't know if I was ready for it because I wasn't prepared for it. Mm-hmm. It's not like he was like, hey, so this is what you have to do. This is X, Y, and Z. This is the things that you have to do. It was just like my mom, she was like, hey, do this. Hey, do that. And I felt like things were piling up. And again, I felt like I was alone because everything was on me. And I remember specifically one day that we had an argument and I was like, I'm not an octopus. Like, I can't do everything. I can't do all this stuff that you expect me to do.
Did she give you...
And it just felt very overwhelming.
Did she give you more than she gave to your sisters to do?
That's what it felt like.
Interesting. Do you think that growing up in a house full of women can mold a man's characteristics differently?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I look at women a lot differently than a lot of people.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking like my father, after it was him and his dad, but like he lived there with his mom and his two sisters. So it was like there was more females than males, and my father's like well mannered. Well, to women, I will say he's like well mannered with women. Like he's not one of the like those typical like douchey bag men. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I just was wondering if you felt the same way because you grew up in a predominantly female home.
Definitely. I think I learned to respect women more, but I also learned seeing my mom that women are more capable than what men paint them out to be. Mm-hmm. Like even when at work or just on the street, other men looking at women picking up heavy things or doing things a man should do. Yeah. They're like, you're really going to let her do that? And I'm like...
Because when I was 5 years old, she was doing it.
Exactly. I'm like, if she's not asking for help, then she can do it. We have to allow them to try if they can. How does growing up with two parents originally, then having a son, and you're not in that two-parent house affect you?
All right. So how it played out was my mom. First off, I think there is a difference between growing up in a happy two-parent home and a broken two-parent home, because, and I didn't know this until I was over the divorce. My house was not a happy two-parent home. So my upbringing with both of my parents, kind of like, yes, it was, I was good, well off, got both my parents. I know where my dad is, yada yada yada. Like, I wasn't like one of the typical boys that I was growing up with, or the majority of the boys I grew up with. They dealt with that, but at the same time, it fucked with my idea of love. So there's definitely a difference. There are people who have both parents at home that they love each other unconditionally. Unfortunately, that was not the case for me, and I wish I knew that back then. But how it played out was my parents were together until I was 18, and my son's mother was pregnant. No, I'm sorry. She had just given birth. So my son wasn't even a year old yet. And we were staying at the house with my parents because she was still in high school. I was 18 and we shouldn't have had a child, but we did. That's just how it played out. So basically, I became a parent at the same time my parents divorced. And I think the one thing that upset me the most was I hate change. But like the main thing was my son isn't going to be able to experience going to grandma and grandpa's house and spending the day with them and enjoying them the way that I enjoyed them. So now he hardly sees my dad. Every now and then I'll bring him over to my father's house, but it's hard because his mother and I are separated, or we're not together. Separated sounds like we were married.
Yeah.
And we were only together for like 2 years. But his mother and I are not together, so I only get him a certain amount of time. So it's hard to consistently bring him to both of my parents, as well as also getting my time with him. So he hardly sees my dad, and he sees my mom, but he doesn't see my mom with her husband, and so it was hard. It was definitely hard, especially because the turn of events was I was becoming a parent as I was watching my parents' marriage break.
But did you want that perfect household where you have?
Yeah, and that's where I come, like, when I'm coming from when I say I didn't like the change. I was so I didn't know that I couldn't see that they weren't in love anymore. But I was like, oh no, you're ruining everything. I was the only one the entire time I was in elementary and middle school that had both their parents. I was the only one. Everyone was like, oh my God, one day I hope to be like your parents. Like, so it was like, you're fucking with my head right now. So like, yeah, no, I wanted it to stay, and I wanted to keep having that happy home. And, like I said, now 10 years later, I'm like, I'm glad you guys got a divorce. Like, I would not want to be in that situation either.
How do you think co-parenting is working for you now?
It took a while, but it might be his age that's also helping, because now he's at the age where he's like, yeah, I've had enough. It's time to go to dad's. Yeah, I had enough. I'd like to go back to my mom's. You know what I mean? So now he's a lot more vocal about his feelings towards what, like, can I sleep with my dad's today, even though it's not the weekend. But in the beginning, it was difficult. It was especially for like a young new mom, only child. So she was like, no, I want him here. I want to be able to watch him, protect him, yada, yada, yada. And now that we have I have a visitation set, it's like easy. We don't fight as much. Like, his mother and I don't fight as much about him. And we're usually on the same page. So, anytime something happens, I get a text, I get a call. I'm finding it very easy now, but I know that it could be worse. It was worse.
Mm.
As a product of a broken home, how did you view your parents co-parenting?
I think they did the best that they could. I was able to see my dad on the weekends, but that was pretty much it. Like, there was no sleeping over past that. When I wanted to go see my dad, there was none of that. He would come to me.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be able to sleep over at his house
any other day but his days.
Yeah.
So basically, like, did you ever see them fight?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Like
definitely.
my main thing is like,
and it even it was. I don't want to paint my parents as bad people, but like trickled down to me and my siblings. Like my mom would be like, "Oh, your dad doesn't care about you. This, that. If he did, then he would visit you or he would call you. Things like that." And as a punishment for their argument,
you wouldn't see one. Like
I
you wouldn't see
my dad.
Yeah. See, that's where my question stems from, because before we started agreeing and getting along and co-parenting as adults, like I said, we were children basically when we had him. So that's what it was. It was a lot of, oh, you don't want to do what I said, then you're not getting him this weekend.
Right.
And it was a lot of, you know what, your mom's a bitch. And my thing is like, now that was when he was like he didn't speak. So I wasn't telling my 10-year-old, hey, your mom's a bitch, you know? I was telling my 2-year-old who didn't know what the word meant, like, your mom is a bitch. So my thing about that is like, I don't know how my son views us co-parenting. You know, like, I don't know if he's like, wow, they're doing a good job. I can tell when he's upset that we agree on stuff because it's usually a punishment. He'll be like, yeah, my mom said I can't play with the PlayStation. I'm like, yes, and you're not playing Xbox here. Why? Because you did this, this, and this at your mom's house. And like, he doesn't like that. He was like, I liked it better when you guys didn't like each other. But I just didn't, like, I don't know how he views because like I said, like not being a product of a broken home is I didn't see the yo-yo effect. Like my mom being like, you can't have him this weekend, even though like there was no reason and I should have been there. You know what I mean? So I was just wondering how you viewed the co-parenting, and it sounds like you could see that there was bickering over you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Especially because like I was like 6, 7 when my parents broke up. So a lot of that stuff happened when I was older. Oh. And like I said, it would just trickle down to me. It sounds like you two are on the same page when it comes to discipline and stuff. But when it came to like my parents, there was none of that. Like my dad was like a more laid back guy and my mom was more like...
Well, it took a while. We disagreed on one very important thing. And that was beating him. Yeah, beating him. Because no, you can't hit him. Don't hit him. And then I don't know. And then he started being really bad. And I was like, this wouldn't have happened if you let me whoop his ass with the belt like my mom did to me.
My mom was more of the discipliner. And my dad was more of the comforter. Like, I'd be like, Dad, Mom beat my ass. And then he'd be like... And then he would just like... He was just trying
to get... You wanted to be your favorite. Like, he was like, oh, son.
It's okay.
Come live here.
No. He knew that I wanted to live with him for a very long time, but due to circumstances that didn't happen. And he would be like, oh, if I could, then I would have you here.
I feel like every child is like that. Whatever parent they do live with, they don't want to live with. They're like, I want to live with my other parent. It has nothing. It's just because they're not dealing with us on the day-to-day basis. Because I say that to my son all the time. He's like, I want to live here. I don't want to live with my mom. I'm like, I'm the mean one, though. Like, I'm like, you disrespect me, and I'm gonna whoop your ass. And all right, now this is not called Q-tip and the short guy for no reason. I am 5'3". My child is he's 4'11" right now. I keep telling him, I'm like, I'm not waiting for this, you're 16 years old to fight me shit. As soon as you can look me in the motherfucking eyes, which is any day now, I'm beating your ass. You talk to me like a grown man, you look like you a grown man, I'm beating your ass. Go ahead, get disrespectful in 2 more days because you're going to be taller than me. Can't wait. I'm gonna go to somebody's gonna see this and be like, the kid
DCYF.
he's beating his 10-year-old.
He's gonna beat his 10-year-old's ass.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna have my 10-year-old open the door and you're gonna be confused which one's the dad. Shave this beard off.
I don't think that's true.
They're gonna be like, your son is taller than you? That's why I beat his ass. I had to protect myself.
Then they're like, alright.
Whatever. Yeah, nah.
They're the same height. So
I'm not. No, it's not even a joke. And the worst part is like looking at her family. Like my sister's taller than me. My brothers are taller than me. My parents, obviously, they're tall. I'm just abnormally short. Her family is like, her brothers are like 6+. Her father is like 6+. I'm like, yo,
so he's gonna be
tall. Yeah.
He's gonna be tall.
Oh yeah. I'm not even here.
You better beat his ass.
Like he looks like his mom. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Or
That's why I'm saying. I
don't
don't give a damn if he's 11 years old. I'm gonna fight him now. So when he is 16 and looking at me like, I don't have to worry about it.
Dad, I will step on you.
For real. And I'll be like, that's fine because when you were 11, I whooped your ass.
Remember when you were 11 and I whooped your ass? Keep that in your mind.
Keep that same energy when you was crying in the corner. I'm not gonna beat my son's ass. And
so you touched on it a little bit, but what do you think makes co-parenting work?
Just 100, not 100. You don't have to 100% agree. There are, like I said, the whole spanking. I'm gonna say spanking. I'm gonna stop saying beating the ass because it sounds terrible.
We call it beating.
But
the
yeah,
ass.
listen. Black people say I'm gonna beat your ass, and it's not as severe as it sounds. It's just a little stick.
Depends on the parent.
I'm trying to make it so I don't go to fucking jail. It's bad. It is.
He's a good parent. He doesn't beat the ass.
I don't beat his ass. Like I just said, his mother said, I cannot do it. So I have to be the coddler. Like I have to sit there and be like, listen, son, if you want to talk about your feelings, we can do that. Instead of being like, did you just smack my hand away from me? My son is on this kick where he likes to call me a stupid idiot. I am a stupid idiot. And do you know how hard it is for this stupid idiot not to knock his teeth out his damn mouth?
I know, I would have.
Yo, I'm like, listen, don't call me names. I keep saying, stop calling me names. Because the one thing I dislike the most is when you call me names. I'm not going to let my 10-year-old call me names. But I think when it comes to co-parenting, the most important thing is to agree before bringing anything in front of the child. So you don't need to agree on what's going on. Like I can be like, I don't think what he did is severe enough for you to take away his electronics. But I do agree that if you want to take it away at your house, you can. By the weekend, if his behavior has changed, then he can use it at my house. But that is our agreement. So even though we're disagreeing about what's going on, in front of him, we need to have a united front. Mm-hmm. That is the most important part of co-parenting. The second important thing about co-parenting is never, ever disrespect the other parent in front of the child.
That's really big.
That is the biggest thing because no matter, and it doesn't matter if it's a child, it's people in general. You never use your judgment on a person to give the illusion that the person is a bad person, because some people don't realize that it's not the person, it's not the other person, it's you. So I might be a piece of shit, that may be a fact, but I might be specifically douchier to you because you're a fucking douche. That does not mean that your friend is also going to get the douche treatment from me because your friend ain't done shit to me. And I feel that same way about children. My son's mother and I had a terrible relationship. That's why we're not together. That does not make me a bad dad. That does not make her a bad mother. So while I'm not going to sit there and be like, just because your mom stopped letting me take you every weekend and was wishy-washy, I'm not going to sit there and be like, your mom's a bitch. You should hate your mom. Because that's fucked up because it's still his mom. I think so. Those two things, In front of the child, you need a united front. The second thing, do not disrespect the other parent in front of the child. Let them form their own judgment on their parent. Right. Because I will tell you this much, like I said about my parents, and not that their marriage wasn't actually happy, and I didn't realize it until I was older. That's because they didn't put that shit in front of me. My mom wasn't like, well, she did call my dad lazy a lot, but I always defended him as a child. I was like, I'm not listening to that bullshit. Fuck that. He gets up at 4 a.m. He goes to work until 3 p.m. Like, he's working. But I realized when I was older, I was like, but he also was off every winter. Like, my dad was a landscaper. So he's always off in the winter. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, it is a little lazy. Now that I think about it. So it's like, I didn't let my mom's judgment, even though she was trying, like, saying her shit, like, I didn't let it form an opinion on my father. I let myself do that. And it would have been easier if I didn't have her in my ear saying stuff. Same with my sister. Like, if my mom and my sister were not speaking about my father, it would have been easier to have my own judgment. I didn't make my own judgment. I'm a grown man. And I just think that is not something you should do. And I learned that because of the situation I was in with my son's mom. Like, we went back and forth when we were younger, and I was like, you know what? That's not healthy. That is not something I want to do.
So, 2 things. I think the underlying thing here is communication. Communication between the 2 parents. Mm-hmm. As far as when you're bringing things up towards the kid, and as far as discipline and just raising them in general, you want to be on the same page, because, like, if in one house they're doing one thing that receives discipline, and then in another house, like, if it's not the same level,
so, like, for an example, like, to explain that better, he has had a problem with chores. So it's not doing them. Like, he doesn't want to do them, obviously, he's a child. But he is convinced that his mother doesn't do anything in the house. So I was like, okay, well, he doesn't do much here. He's only here on the weekend. The trash goes out on a different day than, so I'm like, he doesn't really do much here. How about we do this? How about we make a chores chart and we put our names on it? Even if it's not, I was like, even if your chore this week is to pay the fucking electric bill, put that on there. So you can be like, yeah, I did my chore. That light that's on, the fact that you can play your PlayStation, my job is done. My chore is done. So I think that, yeah, definitely having that, like, that's part of the agreeing in front of each other. So it's easier. It's easier if you just agree, and you can agree to disagree, but in front of him agree.
Yeah. And then the second thing that I think you said really well was that you don't want to talk badly about the parent in front of your child. Mm-hmm. Let them form their own opinion. Because when my mom was saying, like, your dad doesn't love you, or maybe not that extreme, like, so that your dad doesn't love you, but those things, it really shaped my opinion of him. And it wasn't until later on when I was like, wait, my dad is great.
And the unfortunate thing about that is, the parent that does that is they're not realizing that moment, what they're actually doing is they are forming the child's opinion of them, because they're like, you're like, your dad's shit, your dad is shit, your dad don't love you. But then when you get older and you're like, no, my dad loved the fuck out of me, you're like, you were trying to make it so much that, like, you're putting my father and I against each other. You're the shit. You're the shitty parent. Like, it's bad. And I say that all the time I say it to my mom. I'm like, I just hope that he doesn't grow up to hate his mom when he realizes the shit that she was putting me through back when he was a baby. Mm. And I mean, since, like I said, now things are better, he probably won't have that opinion because it stopped. And I think that's a very important thing that parents really need to realize. When they do that, they are really just fucking themselves.
So recently I saw a therapy session on YouTube with Joe Budden, and something that stood out to me that I think kind of applies to what we're talking about is They said punishment suppresses the behavior. It doesn't eradicate it. And I think that is so true, because when you are disciplining, you're not really solving the problem, like when you're talking it out.
If it's more like if you are just punishing, like, oh, you did this wrong, I'm taking this away from you, then I 100% agree. It's different if you are punishing while you're explaining why you're punishing, and that's what the break apart is.
I think it's in terms of going back to the beating your ass thing, like punishing, like, oh, I'm gonna beat your ass. That doesn't solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna solve any issues. It's still underlying.
I mean, for the most part, most mothers, while they're beating your ass, they're gonna let you know why they're beating your ass. Every syllable.
I think
just what say.
you can barely hear it. Like,
but no, I 100% agree that if you're just punishing, yeah, no, all it does is sends your kid to the room angry, and it festers, and there's no resolution to it.
Right, and they don't really understand why it's happening in that moment.
Yeah, and also, like, delayed punishment doesn't help the situation either.
Delayed punishment, that's a thing?
That is a thing. It is a thing. All right, so, like, if my son does something bad at his mom's house, and then, like, on a Monday, and then on the weekend he comes here, and he's still punished for that thing on Monday, he can't connect the reason he's still punished.
So that's like when a dog shits or pees, in the house.
Yeah, you can't.
And you're just like,
I don't know at what point when I left
understand.
for work and when I came back from work you did this, so you don't even know why I'm hitting you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Right?
All
right, man.
Next level shit. Exactly. Things connecting.
Fucking missing link, dude. Alright, man. Let's cut this now.
Alright, so that's all that we have for this episode of Q-Tip and the Short Guy. Tune into the next episode. Like and subscribe and share this video if you enjoyed it, and follow us on our social media.
iTunes, podcast, Spotify. Oh, man, I'm fucked up.
Instagram.
Alright, I'm out.
Oh.
You know.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything.